Congresswoman, it is no secret that we are currently in a highly politicized, highly partisan time. The temperature really seems to be at an all-time high right now. And this weekend was a really terrifying example of political violence. So there have been calls for unity from both sides of the aisle. So what's your message to your constituents and to Americans, regardless of party?
Look at the form of government that we have and recognize that the reason we have had this Constitution in 248 years, and the reason that our constitutional republic has thrived, is that foundational document, the Constitution. What it does in terms of separation of powers, what it does in terms of limiting the power of the government as per the individual. Our First Amendment rights, our Second Amendment rights, our Fourth Amendment rights, our Fifth Amendment rights to equal protection and due process. We have the legal framework in place. We have the political framework in place to last for another 250 years or more. But people have to understand that it's that foundational theory, that foundational, I guess you'd say, mores that we have in this country that have allowed us to thrive the way that we have. And I'm going to say the Democrats will tear that down. They want a fundamentally different form of government. And we saw it with Barack Obama, and we're seeing it in spades with Joe Biden. They want to be able to tell us what kind of a car we can drive. They want to take away our freedoms. They want to limit what we can consume in terms of food. They want to restrict our ability to travel. They want to turn us into a lot of the states around the world. As long as we have the constitutional foundation and we adhere to it, that is ensure that we are adhering to the rule of law, equal protection. As long as to that Constitution, we'll not only survive this, but we will thrive. I agree that the rhetoric is way too hot, but when I walk back and forth between my office and the Capitol, I'm not being confronted by screaming in my face about how bad Israel is, or how we cannot continue to give money to Israel. I'm confronted by the pro-Hamas people. Those are the kinds of people where the rhetoric is getting completely out of control, and they're not aligned with the Democrats.
Then how do you think that it will be turned down? I mean, what do you think the solution is? I want to read part of President Biden's statement to the nation. He said this. He talked about, quote, the need for us to lower the temperature in our politics and to remember, while we may disagree, we are not enemies. We're neighbors, we're friends, co-workers, citizens, and most importantly, we are fellow Americans, and we must stand together. So what do you think the solution is here?
I think he needs to apologize for that fake was in front of the red and black backdrop that he did a year ago, where he screamed at us and screamed at Republicans and screamed about MAGA extremists. I think he needs to apologize for that speech and say it was a terrible mistake. I think he needs to apologize for standing in front of us in the well of the House of Representatives during his State of the Union address earlier this year, where he screamed at us. He was like a deranged old man yelling at us about how extreme we are and how we're going to take away everybody's rights if we're elected. I mean, you've got an extreme party in the Democrats right now in terms of what their policies and what their philosophy is. I think if he really does need to tone things down, but he's been a large part of the problem. I'm not going to apologize. I think that I'm not saying that this is equal on both sides, because it's not. I know a lot of people want to say, well, both sides need to calm things down a bit. I'm not going to do both sides are to blame here, because that's not the circumstance. The Republicans are not taking this approach. We don't call the Democrats the Nazis and Hitler and put Joe Biden on the front of a magazine, equating him to that, despite the fact that what he did a year ago was a pretty frightening backdrop and message that he gave to the American people. It had nothing to do with unity. And right now, the rhetoric we're getting from the Democrats has escalated this situation where we almost had our front runner and the former president of the United States assassinated.